This is Wilfred and Lenore. I want you to look at their faces. To me, they have this look that I like to call forever love. You know that feeling when you walk into a building and that person you're madly in love with is right in front of you and that's all you can see, and everybody else just kind of like fades into the background? I want a piece of what they're having. And I can almost bet that there's a high probability that if you've ever been in a relationship or if you ever plan on being in a relationship, that you want a dose of this too. I feel privileged to have been able to look at this photo since I was a little girl. These are my grandparents, and this was their 50th wedding anniversary. As a marriage educator and a relationship counselor, I have yet to meet a couple who have walked through my door saying that they look forward to their divorce. Ever since I can remember, I have been crazy interested in human behavior, and in particular, relationships. So to me, what I did was I went out there and I got the books. I studied the units, I got my degrees, and I absolutely loved everything I learned. Then when I decided to get married, I wanted to purposely put everything I knew into my marriage, because I too wanted forever love. Now I want to tell you something. A few years ago, I was having this conversation with this woman, and we got on the topic of date night. And she said, "Oh, tell me a little bit about what you do." And I shared with her the same information that I'm going to share with you. And she said, "Oh yeah, date night, that would be great. But like we have kids and we have no family here and it's so expensive, and. And in reality, all I could hear was excuses. So I'm usually pretty straightforward. And on this particular day, I may have been lacking a little bit of sleep as a mother of 2 young children. So I said, "I hear what you're saying. However, a date is a lot cheaper than a divorce." And she looked at me and she went, I never thought of it quite like that. It was from that moment that I started to wonder, what is the cost of divorce? And better yet, what's the burden of divorce? So let me explain. I'm a health scientist, and throughout my degrees, I've learned 2 extremely awesome topics. One is called the burden of disease. The other is the cost of disease. And when you combine these 2 things together, you get a really great picture of the direct and indirect costs associated with an illness, like cancer. And I thought, how cool would it be to apply this to divorce? So I do what I did best, and I geeked out on research. I found everything I could, and I just kind of went to it. And what I found actually surprised me. It doesn't matter if you're in Canada, the US, Australia, New Zealand, Spain, or even the UK. A divorce is going to cost you, on average, $150,000. Some of you are thinking, no, I just go to a lawyer, pay my money, sign my form, go to court, we're done. No, it's the direct and indirect cost. So now you have to sell a house and buy 2, or sell a house and rent in the meantime. Or better yet, buy 2 of everything that you only previously needed 1 of. And don't even get me started on who gets the parental rights of the animals. So then I started crunching some more numbers, and I thought, well, what's it cost to go on a date? Now I'm realistic and I have small children, so 2 dates a month. One you splurge on, go kind of all out, and the other one is what I like to call a low-cost, no-cost date. Pack yourself a picnic and go to the park. Get yourself an ice cream and sit at the beach watching the sunset over the ocean. Low cost to no cost and 1 splurge. Twice a month, over a period of a year, it's going to cost you roughly $2,500. To me, that number is a lot more digestible. So I looked into this and I thought, this is brilliant. People need to know this stuff. Now, I don't want you jumping out of your seats and going to plan your date night right now, because there's 4 principles that you really, really should know in order to make those dates as successful as possible. I've tried to make it as easy as possible, so I've spelt DATE, D-A-T-E. D is for diarize. you absolutely need to go home and print off a calendar or go out and buy one, grab a pen, and circle the date that you're having a date on. Put it somewhere that everyone can see it. Everyone in the house, even the animals, make sure everyone can see that they know that is date. Because if you don't put it on the calendar, weeks and weeks will go by, and you know what? No date will be had. So make sure you diarize. A is for action. So I want you to take action. When you first started dating someone, chances are you each took a turn creating the date. Dates nowadays, after a while together, kind of sound like this. So it's Saturday. What do you want to do? I don't know. What do you want to do? Whatever. That is not a date. There is no surprise to that. So you want one person to plan the date and make it surprise and just invite the other person along. And then the next person is meant to create the next date so that you trade off. Go somewhere you haven't been. Do something exciting that you never thought possible. Those are the things you want to do. Going to a movie is not a date. I can sit next to anybody at a movie, just like you guys are. I'm guessing, well, maybe some of you, this is your date, which is great, great date. Make sure you make it about yourself. The next thing is talk. T for talk. Talk to each other in a positive light about your relationship, all the great things that have happened and that you want to continue doing in your relationship. Talk to each other about all the things that you fell in love with each other for and that you want to continue doing. Now, there's a small caveat with this, and bear with me. 3 things you cannot talk about. You cannot talk about work, because this is a date. This is not work. If you have them, you cannot talk about your kids. Because if so, you might as well have not paid for the babysitter and brought them along. Finally, you can't talk about logistics or admin stuff, like who's driving who to the airport next, or did we actually hang out that laundry? No. I see it. I see those rolling eyes. Hold on, Amanda. I can't talk about work, my kids, or logistics. There's nothing left to talk about. Absolutely not. There's plenty more to talk about. And if you really think you have talked every topic out, come and see me. So what I want you to do, I want you to think about your partner, and I want you to answer this question. If your partner had the chance of running away from a bear or a lion, which would they choose and why? If you don't know the answer, you got plenty to talk about. Finally, the last part of the acronym is E for excuses. No excuses allowed. Never. Sorry I got to work late. I'm sorry I can't. It's date night. My car's out of petrol. Guess what? There's Uber. The restaurant's on fire. Plenty more down the street. There should never, ever be an excuse. In so much so, my husband was in a hospital a few years ago. He was there all day. His dinner got delivered that night. And he looked at the nurse and he said, "This is going to sound weird and I don't even know if you can do this, but would you be able to bring my wife a dinner as well, because we're meant to be having a date." If I can have a date with my husband in a hospital while he's attached to a morphine drip, you have no excuses. So what do I know from research? I know there's great things that separate good from amazing relationships. Those 3 things are empathy, positivity, and a great, deeper emotional connection. Guess what? You can get all 3 on a date. And if you regularly go on dates, you're going to just foster that even more. So if you know that that's what separates good from great relationships, why wouldn't you want to do that? Now, don't get me wrong. When it comes to relationships, most of us have no clue what we're doing it. We're winging it. We're pretty good at communicating to ourselves, but we have no clue how to communicate to others, especially when emotion's involved, and we have to talk about, those subtle little arts of being able to pick up laundry and put it actually in a laundry bin. There's one of them right there. So to me, we know that if you, as researchers and marriage educators, I know from research that if you have empathy, positivity, and a greater emotional, deeper connection, then you're going to have the chance of having forever love. I would suggest that you treasure your relationships and take the opportunity to engage in dates as much as possible and make sure that your relationship is the priority. Thank you.